Now, we all know about Harold, an old-timer from out west. Well, actually, with how many new people are here nowadays, you might not know exactly who Harold is, so I'll give you a little rundown on him. Like I said, he's an old-timer from out west, born pre-war. Not by much, but still pre-war. When he was young, he ended up in a vault, like quite a few people did. Except in his vault was different from others, and in that the idea of it was only to be kids in that vault. Everyone else was, well, no one really knows for sure, but they didn't stay. Now, this vault was looked over by a Zax, a supercomputer. One of them kinds that isn't a robo-brain or anything like that, but just no one really knows what exactly they are inside. Anyway, this supercomputer, this Zax, was unique. A lot like many things from Vault Tech were, because instead of it just being a normal AI that they made, it was the mind of a woman, a doctor, a researcher, named Diana. She put her mind into the computer there so she could, well, become the god of that vault. And what she did was she guided the youths in the vault. No one over the age of 16, I should say, was admitted into the vault. So she taught them for some years. And every year, in the same time, she'd send a robot out into the wastes, saying that it was for scouting, checking radiation levels, so that when Reclamation Day came, the families of the vault could walk out into the wastes and not need to worry. The reality of it is, what she was doing was using those robots that she'd send out to carve a home for the vault dwellers into a mountainside, much like the ancient natives of times gone by. She eventually opened the doors of the vault, and when she did, she used a holographic projector to make it seem like she was godly and all of that. Well, the vault dwellers set up shop in their new home that they called Twin Mothers, and this is the area that Harold comes from. Well, like I said, he didn't stay put for long. He went out into the wastes to, well, be his own man, so to speak. Founded a caravan company, made friends along the way, ran into a man by the name of Gray. Gray, like a mentor to him, a doctor, I think he was. They did well together, made good money. Eventually, mutants started hitting caravans, and since Harold was in the caravan business, he didn't want that to keep happening, so he put together a team to go figure out where they were coming from and what they were doing with the people that they were taking. Well, they found where the people were being taken. A place called Mariposa, an old base before the war. Hell of a fight getting in there. Only 3 or so made it in. One was sent back out into the wastes, find help, because he was hurt, I do believe. Gray and Harold made it further in, as one does. He's a tough old son of a bitch. But few things happened. Not going to go into too much detail over it, because you probably heard the story before. Harold got knocked out. Gray got knocked into big-ass vat of FEV. Some of that FEV splashed on Harold. Harold eventually woke up sometime later out in the wastes, having started to turn at that point. Now, at that point, he thought himself a ghoul, as one might think looking at him now. Well, actually, nowadays, he don't look too much like a ghoul anymore. That's neither here nor there. But our old friend Harold is a ghoul. Now, some would say, since he was exposed to FEV and not radiation, that he's not a ghoul. That's understandable, because they think ghouls come from radiation. And that makes sense. There are quite a few ferals found in old bombed-out sites and split open reactors. They make those places their home, but I think that's more out of necessity than what they actually are, and what actually makes them. Don't get me wrong, radiation seems to play a big part in it, but I don't think that's what actually makes a ghoul into a ghoul. Now just listen while I spitball here, okay? Back before the war, there was this shit that happened. It was a plague. Talked about that one before not too long ago. I won't bore you too much with details. But this plague that ravaged pre-war America, deadly, killed many people, caused a lot of problems. Now, where this plague comes from, no one really knows. You know where I think it came from. But it was eventually dealt with. It disappeared before the Great War. The war to end all wars, really. Just up and disappeared. Wasn't a problem. Hell, we don't even see it kicking about now after. So one has to wonder, where did it go? Well, the United States government looked into this. As I said, they wanted to make a vaccine for it. So they started up a project known as the Pan Immunity Viron Project. I know, it's a mouthful. And the cultures and strains they made from that, I do believe, were made from X001, mutant and broke America, really, to make something that would make someone resistant to disease. Noble goal, noble intention. Well, the government saw that it could also twist and distort someone into a giant, well, soldier of a kind. So they pivoted to the forced evolutionary virus. That's what they renamed it. That's what they went with. I mean, understandable. It was a time of war at that point, and they needed all hands on deck, so that's what they went with. I personally believe, though, that the vaccine that was used to stop the new plague was fully manufactured, that the Pan-Immunity Viron Project served its purpose, and that this strange vaccine, this strange mutated whatever, is the key here. Now figure it this way. You have a strange thing that can damn near distort reality. Anything organic that comes within anywhere close to it is changed beyond belief. So you use its own power against it to make people immune to it. Makes sense, right? Now let's say let's just call it the vaccine. Let's say this vaccine goes through and makes it so that whatever the new plague is, this corruption, this disease, whatever it is, just your body adapts to it. Makes it so that it cannot harm you. Sure, you're exposed to it. Sure, you might even be carrying it, but it cannot hurt you. That's fine. After all, if everyone's immune to it now, no one needs to worry about being immune to it, right? Now, let's figure, okay, nuclear power. Well, radiation doesn't really behave the way it's supposed to out there in the Wasteland. After all, a fusion core that can power a building's auxiliary power for 300 years, and it less than the size of an old car battery, something's up with that, right? So maybe, just maybe, especially since it was so proliferant around pre-war America, these nuclear batteries of a sort, or these power cells, or whatever you want to call them, maybe they have a unique type of, what's the word I am looking for? Fissile material? Radioactive element? Whatever you want to call it. The shit that makes it go boom. What if they all have a fairly unique form of that? Well, that's what I think happened, right? We have the GEC. Now, the GEC is just a briefcase that can apparently kickstart terraforming projects. With the GEC, I think it's specialized strains of X001 set as like a backup, a reserve, a save point, if you will. And that this unique strain pulls from those save points to modify the world around it. Radioactive dirt and contaminated dirt turns into fertile soil. An old burned out tree turns into a pine tree. And while it might not work on complex life instantaneously, like say a Brahmin drinks some water that's been purified, well, it's not going to automatically turn back into a fucking Holstein. It's going to still be a Brahmin. But its calves, though, will most likely be Holsteins, or whatever strain of bovine it has evolved from and mutated from. And so I think the GEC works, and I think they did the same thing with nuclear elements. They allowed this corruption, this outsider's influence, to modify the radioactive materials, right? After all, if you could expose your radioactive fissile material or whatever to this X01, X001, not to confuse it with the power armor, X01. Anyway, to expose your radioactive material to this and make it 100 times as potent, that would make sense. The risks would outweigh the rewards at that point, right? After all, you can have a single battery that powers half a building for 300 years. Or you can have a vehicle that runs almost non-stop. You just got to put coolant in it every once in a while. Or you can have a gun that shoots non-stop all the time and just needs a small window of time to recharge itself. Or a shoulder-mounted nuclear catapult that actually works. Don't get me wrong, we have the Davy Crockett, and that's kind of a dumb idea unto itself. Mostly because you can't get out of the blast area when you shoot the damn thing off, but that's neither here nor there, really. What I'm getting at is, none of these things should be able to operate the way they do, but they do. And it also seems like post-war, these things can't really be built back up. So there has to be something strange going on. Trust me, if the Brotherhood of Steel could have figured out a way to utilize this tech by now, they'd be reproducing itself. Hell, if the Enclave could get their hands on it and make their own fusion cores and power plants, and they'd be doing the same thing, right? So something had to give back then. So what I think happened after everyone was vaccinated, Mind you, I say everyone, and I mean the people most likely to be infected, right? You don't need to vaccinate someone in the middle of nowhere for something that's hitting the city super hard. Now, active duty would have most likely been vaccinated first. After all, got to keep the soldiers safe so they can keep doing their jobs there. Big thing, though, is they most likely noticed this in some of the soldiers that were working more dangerous jobs, or maybe it could have first been brought up in, quite frankly, I think mechanics of some kind. After all, you gotta remember, most cars, back before the bombs fell, were all nuclear powered. They had specialized radioactive cores that produced energy, much like a fusion core does, except a little larger, can output a little more sustained energy. It would need to be topped off with coolant ever so often, what they sell at the service stations like Red Rocket. Now, these cores would most likely crack and leak, and of course people are going to get in accidents, and quite frankly, the things explode all the fucking time, so it's not really surprising that some unlucky mechanic inside or directly outside of a city that had been vaccinated with this strange vaccine would have been exposed to radiation. Little at first, maybe a lot. Maybe went all demon core on him. Who knows? But he probably would have been one of the first to turn into a ghoul. Now, we think ghoulification happens when someone is exposed to large amounts of radiation. And that does, in fact, happen. We've seen it happen. But I think the radiation is just a catalyst, kickstarting something that's already inside. You haven't put two and two together yet. I think that this vaccine made to stop whatever X001 was doing to people. I think that's the key here. After all, we've seen what FEV did later on. I figure this vaccine made from the precursor to FEV could do something similar under certain circumstances. So, what I think happens is that the body tries to adapt. Well, first the body gets radiation sickness. That happens. Hair falls out, start puking your guts out, microbiome inside all gets fucked up. Not a pretty sight. Then, the black lesions, dead skin, pus everywhere, rotten flesh, teeth falling out. Not a fun time. Not a fun time. But at that point, right there, is most likely when this vaccine kicks in again. And it makes the body adapt, like it made the body adapt to the new plague, to stop that from spreading. So it makes the body into something that can not just withstand radiation, but feed off of radiation. So some unlucky bastard out there was the first one to figure this out, and the government knew about it, fully fucking knew about it. From the Commonwealth, I heard a story of a ghoul, winter something, pre-war ghoul. That's not really all that unheard of or uncommon, but I hear that he turned himself into a ghoul before the bombs fell, so that he can live forever or some shit. I guess he got his wish, because he turned into a fucking ghoul. Now, like I was saying, the government had to have known about it, and they probably tested, probed here and there, figured out how it worked, and realized that, sure, you can make everyone immune to radiation and disease, and make them live forever, and make them eat radiation, well, feed off of radiation. I don't know, probably like some kind of tree. But probably didn't want to walk around looking like a corpse, So they probably shelved that project, figuring, there's not going to be a large enough scale of radiation hitting anybody to actually kick anything off. That's easy enough to understand. But I do believe that normal radiation alone, just normal stuff that would normally give you cancer, if someone with this vaccine in their system comes in contact with that type of radiation, I think it'll fry them faster. It'll break their bodies down faster, emaciate them quicker. Quite frankly, maybe even fry bits of their brains to a point to where they turn feral. Would make sense why some ghouls like Hancock, hell, even Cooper Howard there, the old Western Star, are all fairly stable, even after however many hundreds of years it's fucking been at this point, because some radiation kicking around would have been modified with the same base that created the vaccine, right? Now, if they're exposed to that type of radiation, the dirty radiation, let's call it, corrupted fallout, and just call it corrupted fallout. If they're exposed to this corrupted fallout, it probably plays better with what they already have in their systems. After all, they're coming from the same baseline, and it probably helps them adapt quicker to the radiation so they keep who they are. But in time, after being exposed to countless other types of radiation sources, it could most likely fry the still functioning brain of normal pre-war ghouls and ghouls that came after, right? That could explain why ghouls need to take rat away. Well, it's why some ghouls need to take rat away. Other ghouls could very well just be lucky enough to be in an area that's saturated with that sweet, sweet corrupted fallout so they don't turn. Yeah, I heard tell of a talking ghoul by the name of Bright, of all fucking things. He seems fine. And glowing ghouls literally produce their own type of radiation, or they store radiation in large amounts. Not entirely sure how they work biologically. Anyway, there has to be something there. Has to be a reason why some ghouls changed in the flash of a bomb and others simply were still normal. Right? We've seen some ghouls that are extremely far along in the necrosis process for ghoulification, and we've seen other ghouls that are damn near untouched by it. Hancock, for one. Also heard tell of somebody that found a ghoul kid in the fridge. That's gotta suck, never being able to grow up. Anyway, I also heard tell of out on the west coast, well, not too far from the west coast really, heard tell of stories a while back of what they called a natural born ghoul. A couple of them floating around, actually, male and female, I think. Don't really know much about them. All I know is apparently they were natural born from other ghouls. Skin wasn't as bad, they looked a little better. From what I remember hearing about those ones was that they are usually a dull green in color, and that the what would look like lesions and necrotic flesh and even exposed bone in some areas wasn't actually any of that. It was more of a, well, have you ever seen them old dinosaurs and whatnot? I guess it was some kind of like plating on the outside of them. After all, they're pretty much evolved to a point to live in the post-apocalyptic world, so that wouldn't be all that surprising to me. Now back onto the topic of what I was trying to get at in the beginning before I started my rambling. Harold, our old friend. Now, some would say he's not a ghoul because he was contaminated with FEV and that turned him into what he is. Some would just call him a mutant. Maybe an offshoot of super mutant. Maybe just call him a normal mutant, if you will. Personally, I think he is just another type of ghoul. After all, the FEV is in the same branch of Pan-Immunity Viron Project, which most likely allowed people turn into ghouls to begin with. So, him being a vault dweller from back in the day, sure, he was only a few years old when he went into the vault, but he was most likely still given the vaccine as he went in, as a precaution, and then being exposed to the FEV the way he was, along with being irradiated along the way from background radiation, could have turned him into something a little bit different, but still close enough to a ghoul to be called a ghoul. A big thing we need to talk about our friend Harold is his friend Bob. Now, if you ever met Harold, you know that he had, well, at least back in the day, he had a tree growing out of his head. A little sprout. Always figured it landed on him around the same time he got knocked out. Took root, just been stuck with it since then. Which is most likely true. I very well think he had a seed in his hair, give or take, when he got doused in FEV and it just kind of melded them together. After all, we know what happened to Gray. I don't see why it couldn't happen to him too. After all, he was contaminated with the same strain of FEV. Now this tree probably took a long time, well, it did take a long time for it to fully take root and start to grow, but I feel like the boundary between human and ghoul and plant was broken down due to the Pan-Immunity Viron Project's vaccine and Harold, along with the exposure to FEV that they both suffered, and, of course, radiation to kick the entire thing off. And it made a specialized breed of natural-born plant life. Natural-born ghoulified plant life, if you will. After all, our friend, he ended up a little indisposed on the East Coast, a place called Oasis. Turned into a tree, which is, quite frankly, a strange sentence to say, but he turned into a tree. Most of his organs ended up underground in the root systems. Very lush area around him. All made from plant life that grew from him that he can somehow extend his consciousness through, which is interesting, to say the least. But this isn't the first time we see the breakdown between human and plant. There are a couple vaults out, well, a vault out there that dabbled in the same thing, and there's a place in the Big Empty which also did the same thing. Spore creatures, I think they're called. Which also, side note here, Big Empty. I always thought it was the Big Empty, right? Like nothing is there. But then I remembered that the place is called Big Mountain. Then I remembered the abbreviation for mountain is MT. So the big empty is just Big Mountain. Not proud of that. Taking me that long to figure that out. But yeah, a little slow on the uptake on that one. Anyway, these experiments were done all over the place. Pretty sure there was a place called the Nursery that also dabbled in it. Pretty sure Diana, the same Diana that ran Harold's Vault, also experimented with, well, also pretty much owned the Nursery. I think it was in the same valley Twin Mothers was in. Anyway, I think this specialized type of plant life, this ghoulified plant life, is all one derived from Harold, but I think it's a specialized type of plant life that, if the stories of the nursery are true, might eat people sometimes. But it might be the next step in what's to come for the Wasteland. Maybe one day the Wasteland will be nice and verdant green again, far as the eye can see. Although, you might want to stay out of the tall grass because it could eat you. Be interesting to see. Also, thinking about plant life being eaten by plant life. But yeah, no, it made me think of the Yaogwai. From the Yaogwai I've seen, well, some of them end up more hairless due to where they live. Quite a few of the ones that I have seen have an almost plant-like appearance to their fur, hide, whatever you want to call it. It's a deep green color, almost like moss that seems to grow on them. Maybe that's another type that's growing out there. It also made me see that there are scorched versions of Yaogwai floating around, which makes me wonder, are the scorched, ghouls, marked men, maybe even tunnelers, all cut from the same cloth? I don't know. I'd have to look into that. But as for right now, to give an abridged version here at the end, like I try to do in all of them, I just need to remember to put a timestamp here. I believe that the Pan-Immunity Viron project that was created to combat the new plague was successful and stopped the new plague by mutating people so that they could endure it. Maybe even just be flat out immune to it. Now, this exposure to this vaccine made from X001 made it so that people exposed to radiation, their bodies would try to adapt. People exposed to pure, uncorrupted radiation would turn into a feral ghoul. But people exposed to modified radiation modified using X001 as well, so these isotopes could become more potent and produce more power, as we see in almost all technology in the Fallout universe. I think exposed to that, the strain of X001 in the radioactive material and interacts strangely with the vaccine, making people adapt faster, if you will, like a supercharged version of the vaccine, adapting them quicker to, well, ghoulification. No more disease, no more need to worry about radiation. You can just chill out in a radioactive hole in the ground and you'll be fine, right? Although, and this is the big thing, a lot of people think that ghouls can endure any type of radiation. I don't think that's true. I think they have to be stuck in the same areas with the same type of corrupted fallout that made them, right? If they go to a crater where a nuke hit that was from China or some other place that didn't supercharge their nukes, I believe that radiation would slowly chip away at who they are before they turn feral. After all, we know some ghouls have to take rat away. Why would they need to take rat away if they're immune to radiation? Because they're only immune to certain types of radiation. They can only feed off of certain types of it. The rest of it hits them as hard as it hits us. Hell, it might even hit them harder because their body's trying to feed off of it. I'm not entirely sure on that one. Anyway, that's about the long and short of it for this video. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And I know this is all the way at the end here, but if this is your first or second time here, hope you enjoyed the video. If this is your third time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on when I post. I also made a new tier to memberships, since I didn't know you could do that. You were stuck with the two that they give out, changing the wording on them. But I made a new tier that's $2 because I had a few people donate a couple of dollars here and there, and I thank you. It means a lot. Kind of feel bad you're not getting anything in return. And yeah, I know you could say you're paying me for giving me a little something because you like the video and whatnot. I think I did a good job with it. So I feel like you're not getting anything. So I looked into it. The lowest amount you can give through like super thanks is $2. So I made a tier of support membership. That's what they're called. That's just $2. You get access to all my members' videos. There's a whole Courier 6 run there. Raw audio for some videos. Raw audio for at least one video I know that I haven't even done yet. I might not even do it. It might just stay raw audio for members only there. So yeah, if you want to support in that way you can. You know, it's appreciated. You don't need to. Anyway, I'm probably actually going to look into the Scorched at this point. See what makes them tick. Why they all died off. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna head out. Well, I'm gonna head out after I thank my member, Eric Hewitt. Thanks a lot, man. Means a lot to me. Means a lot. Now, I'm gonna head out because it is, what is it? Fucking 4 a.m. 4 a.m. on a Saturday. And no, I'm not the piano man.